have some big thoughts on AI and the legal practice. Technology in general has been on a big uptick.
There's just delays everywhere.
It was even beat into our heads in law school that all you need is your yellow legal pad and a can-do attitude.
My name is Christian Cooper, and I serve as corporate counsel.
Allison Slotzve, and I manage Gemini's litigation support team.
Okay, alternative dispute resolutions. And if you're cool, ADR.
Right.
What do you know, or do you have any practice experience with ADR?
I have more experience with it on the workers' comp side of things,
Okay.
and how there's just a few cases that we would deal with or come across that are ADR. It mostly has to do with when the employer has to have a collective bargaining agreement in place. So it really just applies to unions.
Okay.
But so it's not a big portion of cases
Sure.
that we deal with, but occasionally
And
we
that's
do.
a collective bargaining agreement. The cool kids call them CBAs. Maybe we should go over what an alternative dispute resolution is and how I would define it as not getting a full court order, not going through the entire legal process and saying, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go on my own path and try to come to a conclusion, hopefully trying to save time and money. I think that's generally what the point
Right.
of an alternative dispute resolution is.
Definitely. I know that, I don't know what the current wait time is, but at least at Sacramento County, to get your case when you file in civil court, from filing to resolved through the court, that can take years.
That's gross, because that's like, it was just doing something with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO. They were showing on one page that a filing could take 6 to 8 months to go all the way through, and they were showing on another page 12 to 18. So things
Either
take a
way,
long
it's a
time.
while.
Yeah. So alternative dispute resolutions, ADRs, the purpose of them is to attempt to save time, attempt to save money, and hopefully both the parties are coming to a conclusion that they both agree upon and can have an action item right away without waiting for court, going through court,
Right.
dragging witnesses in, depositions, attorney's fees, maybe ruining reputations, whatever comes from the court case. Some type of alternative dispute, this resolution that comes from that, you can solve it much quicker.
Definitely.
I believe those are more like, you see them most often in mediation, arbitration, and some people will call a settlement conference an ADR path. I have a hard time with that because I see alternative dispute resolutions as non-court involvement, or you're trying to solve something without
Right.
the court need, and usually settlement conferences are a court-mandated, court-ordered action item that you have to show up to, and at least in a good faith effort that I'm trying to solve this thing. But mediation and arbitration, I guess those might be mandatory too if they're in a contract. Because you could have those as the dispute of how you solve a contract. But anyone could pick up the phone and call a mediator or an arbitrator. So you brought up a couple points that in your experience, you've had a few go through workers' comp. Can you give me an example of what that looked like through your eyes?
Sure. Rather than have the case be heard at the board, so at the WCABs, instead you have it go through an ADR program. And in workers' comp, they're also called carve-out cases. So where you have a facilitator, the ombudsperson, who's going to oversee that case and help get that moved along, so it's not going to take as long. And you've got still have a judge overseeing. It just, there's more eyes on it, more hands on it. It seems like they get moved along much faster, and the decisions are made quicker for the treatment or any disputes that come up in the case for the injured worker. So I think it can benefit both sides a lot. And same with civil ADR, it can really benefit both sides, just with the improved speed, less cost, less litigation.
Sure, and that's just because the court you're not going through the entire court experience. It doesn't mean that the conclusion you're coming to isn't as real.
Right.
Like mediation, of what comes from that. Again, bear with me here, maybe absent prior written agreement where you might have a contract that says we go to mediation and whatever comes from that is going to be binding. But generally speaking, mediation Doesn't have to be binding on both parties, but you have two good faith parties who just say, hey, look, I just want someone to help us come to a conclusion. Whatever that person says, we're gonna go with.
Right.
And then arbitration is usually binding. What happens from that, whatever that arbitrator decides is going to happen, and they can submit it to a court, or both of you swear to something before you go into arbitration that whatever comes of this, we will be held to. And I've even seen arbitration panels. You might have 3 people who are trying to be impartial and make a decision. I did not know in California, and tell me if you're aware of this. You can have a state appointed from the bar, an arbitrator, and you can have a non-attorney and an attorney, or an attorney arbitrator. Have you seen
No,
this
I did
before?
not know that.
Yeah, you have to go through that path to be certified, so to speak, from the bar. I didn't know you even had to file
Wow.
with them. So even a non-attorney can file to be on a licensed list through the state bar to be a non-attorney arbitrator.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and they have a list, and you say, I want a non-attorney arbitrator, and they will find you and check this box and say, contact this person, you can do that. Or I want an attorney or an ex-judge to do this, and check.
So we've talked about some of the benefits of ADR. What are some of the negatives, or if there are any that you can think of?
In my opinion, you're not having your full day in court, right? If someone's lying or cross-examination doesn't really exist there, right? Especially in mediation, rules of evidence kind of get thrown out the window, and it's hopefully this person agrees with you to come to a conclusion. I would say to try to, if funds and time weren't an issue, try to go through the entire process so you can have the truth come out, and that's a really big thing. But if time and money is a concern, or maybe access to justice isn't always accessible to every single individual,
Right.
especially civilly, ADR is the way to go. And I say that very lovingly.
So what do you think? I know ADR can have sometimes a negative connotation, especially when it comes to the employment related ADR, where I know previously when you work for a company, they can have you sign an agreement to go through ADR. And that can have a little bit of a negative connotation. But do you think that it's more positive? Or was it good for employer-employee disputes? Or
Yeah, I mean, those are usually optional to agree to anyway. I have a hard time seeing why it's a negative, a con. I see all of that as a pro. I see the time saving, especially for the company, or if, let's say there hypothetically is an employment dispute, right? Well, that employee is not getting paid during this litigation,
Right.
assuming they're not grabbing another job in the interim. Well, funds are an issue, and you're fighting with a company that hopefully has some respect for you as an individual, and they want you to be able to go through a process where you can come to your truth, come to a conclusion without burning your bank. I think that, and I'm going a little off script here, and I'm looking around because I genuinely believe that. I think that that's really true. I don't see a lot of cons there for an employee-employer dispute, right?
Right.
It's probably more in the benefit of the employer to drag you through court and make you spend all your time and money to drop the
Right.
suit. So an employer who's willing to do something like an ADR, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, because typically the employer is the one that has, the deeper pockets in those
Yeah.
relationships.
The
So
funds, the
I
time.
tend to agree with
Yeah.
that. Those are some good insights.
Yeah, the access to justice is more accessible to those who have the time and money.